and welcome to tonight's webinar, Myth Busting for the First Home Buyer and Young Investor. So before we get started, as always, we talk about the things that we talk about during our webinars are general information only. So before making any important decisions, it's important that you do evaluate what you're looking at in terms of how it works for you before making any decisions. So who are we? So I'm sure most of you know who we are by now, but just for those that are new to our webinars tonight, we are Justin and Jenny Watson, currently 33 years old, although I am looking forward to in 2 weeks' time when Justin becomes 34 and I can say he's older than me. So we both work full time. We have a 2.5-year-old tornado, Olivia. She is obviously our beautiful toddler who does, she is a tornado. We joined the club back in 2009 and we became property millionaires thanks to the club in 2012. We became property mentors in 2016, and the reason why we became mentors was because the club had given us so much on our investment journey. We wanted to help others on theirs. We became Young Investors Club ambassadors in 2016, and we became the YIC presidents in 2018. When we talk about what Justin and I have achieved, it's important that you do understand that we're on average income. So we're not earning hundreds of thousands of dollars each. We are very much earning average incomes. Why are we busting myths tonight? So it doesn't matter who you talk to, they've got their own opinion and spin on things regardless of the topic. Doesn't matter what it is. And sometimes it's really hard to get away from the negative media when it comes to investing. Negativity sells, it's a fact. And then that negativity feeds into our thoughts and then become our point of view on matters of the world. And this is no different for property investing. The media are all too happy to point out the negatives of property investing, but they're often not an accurate reflection of how things actually are. So they focus on a small, minute aspect that can make things appear differently to how they are. But by busting some of these myths, we hope to help point you in the right direction of forming your own opinions, plans, and decisions so that you can have a successful property investing journey. Myth number 1, I don't need to worry about my financial future in retirement as I have superannuation. Busted. So unfortunately, you couldn't be more wrong. It's highly unlikely that there will be a pension available for the retired by the time we retire. So obviously currently 33. Even if there is a pension, it won't be enough for a comfortable lifestyle. Anyone watch a current affair and you see those stories of the elderly that are they can't use their heater because they can't afford it. Things like that. So what will we use? The government says that that's what our super's for. But according to superguide.com.au, for a couple to have a comfortable lifestyle, they'll need around 61K per year in today's money. All right, but in 30 years' time, with inflation at 2.5% each year, which is quite realistic, that 61,000 would actually be worth 128,000. So the cost of a comfortable lifestyle for a couple in 30 years is likely to be around 128K. How much is in your super account now? The Association of Superannuation Funds of Australia Limited states that the average super balance at retirement is 270K for men, 157K for women. So the above figures were at 2016. So scarily the average for men was higher 2 years prior, which means that the average actually went down. Okay, so remember 270K for men, 157 for women, which is around 427 for a couple. So if the average super account at retirement is 427,000 for a couple, and the cost of a comfortable lifestyle in 30 years will be around 128K, I think we've definitely completely busted this myth. You do need to worry about your financial future because super's not going to cut it. And I'm not very good at maths, but in my estimate, that's at 128K per year. That's only 4 years. I plan to live in retirement for a lot longer than 4 years. But the good news is that starting early maximizes your ability to grow a substantial nest egg. So chat to your mentor now. Don't wait, because the longer you leave it, the less of a nest egg you'll have. Our next myth: investing in property is too scary to get started. Busted. Lots of life's firsts are scary, all right? Think about your first day on the job, your first day at school, day one with your newborn, or a first date. Did you not move forward simply because you were too scared? No, you still started that job, you still went to school, you took care of your newborn, and you went on that first date and hopefully lived happily ever after. We often advise our members, friends, and our family not to talk themselves out of looking after themselves. The reality is, unless you plan to live with your kids when you retire, no one else is going to look after you. You have a property mentor for a reason, and that is to help you on your property journey. So let them guide you and support you as you become a landlord and a homeowner. Our next myth: as a first home buyer, I have to save a really large deposit to purchase. Again, busted. So for first home buyers, the government have a few different incentives to help get you into a property. This varies from state to state. On top of this, the Property Club negotiate great deals and in most cases can save you even more when making your property purchase. So let's have a look at an example. The club currently have a property listed in Melbourne, which is a 1-bedroom unit. And with the Property Club's negotiation deal, you can get in for as little as 20K as a first home buyer. Let's have a look at another example. So the club currently have a property listed in Brisbane, which is a 3-bedroom townhouse. And with the Property Club's negotiation deal, you can get in for as little as 34K as a first home buyer. So that theory of needing to have tens of thousands of dollars absolutely applies in some circumstances. But if you are a first home buyer, we can get you in for as little as that. So it's really important that you chat to your property mentor to see if that's something that we can do for you. By working with the Property Club and your property mentor, you can take advantage of the negotiations to get you into a property for less of a deposit. So have a chat to your mentor about how this could work for you. Our next myth: so if property prices go down, I'm going to be in financial ruin. Busted. The earlier you start investing, the less impact a fall in property prices will have on your retirement solution. Every location goes up and down in the property cycle. The reality is, though, that if you hold a property for multiple cycles, even though at times the value does go down, the long-term outcome will still be positive due to inflation. So let's take a look at an example. Our property in St Mary's in Western Sydney, which we bought in 2013, we purchased at 319K, which was at the bottom of the market, meaning the properties were at their cheapest. In 2018, it was valued at 460,000, but it's now dropped down to 430. All right, so the media would talk about this scenario by saying that housing prices have dropped 6.5% in the last year, and that's correct for this particular property. However, we are still positive 35% since we purchased because we've seen a property cycle. The media only reports on the decrease, not the increase that we've already seen. Let's look at another example. Our property in 8 Mile Plains, south of Brisbane, we bought in 2010. We purchased at 345 towards the top of the market, meaning we paid pretty much top dollar for it. Valued in 2012 at 320,000, so it went down 25K in the first 2 years. It's now worth 400K. So the media would say that this property dropped 7% in the first 2 years, which is absolutely accurate, but we saw out the property cycle and we're still positive 16% since we purchased. So again, the media will only report on the decrease, not the increase that we've seen, because decreases seem more interesting to people. Our next myth, I wouldn't know where to start in being a landlord. Cue your property mentor, cue your property agent, and cue your landlord insurance. So there are lots of mechanisms in place to help landlords be fair and ensure that they're not taken advantage of. The Property Club will be able to provide you with lots of information about your rights and obligations as a landlord. Your mentor will be able to share success and failure stories of what worked for them as landlords and what didn't. This includes little incentives that you can give in order to keep quality tenants for the long term. Cue our webinar, Managing Your Property Like a Champ. So that's available on our YouTube channel, and it explores about how you can be a fantastic landlord and hopefully hold great tenants to help pay off your mortgage. Landlord insurance. So this is a policy that you can take out as a landlord in order to insure your asset for particular incidents, such as a tenant not paying rent or a tenant damaging your property. Every policy is different, so do your research to make sure you're covered. To me, this is a non-negotiable. It's really important that you do have your landlord insurance. A lot of the horror stories that you see on shows like A Current Affair of tenants that have trashed houses and things like that, the only reason that they've escalated to shows like A Current Affair is because the landlord didn't have landlord insurance and can't afford to make the repairs. So it's important to remember that there are so many resources available to help remove that fear factor when embarking on a property investment journey. So don't shy away from your happily ever after. I'd rather buy a property, renovate and flip it to make a profit. It's not that easy here in Australia. Here in Oz, a crappy house on a block of land will cost close to the same as an amazing house on the same block of land. So we tend to pay for the land as opposed to the house that's on the land. Whereas in America, it's more common to buy a crappy house cheaper than that of an amazing house. So these shows that we all watch with these amazing transformations and makeovers where people are flipping these houses, guarantee a majority of them are done in America and not in Australia because it's just not as feasible here. Then you need to think about the fees and charges such as stamp duty and capital gains tax. Are you just buying yourself a job as opposed to making a smart investment choice for your future? Unfortunately, here in Oz, it's extremely difficult to make a significant amount of cash just by flipping houses. So that's why we stick with purchasing new properties for our portfolio. I'll just buy a cash flow positive house and make my money that way. Good luck. There's not that many of them out there, and those that are generally secondhand and in not so great locations. So cue your outrageous expenses to maintain your property. The older the property, the more expensive it will be to maintain. And remember, if you're not in a great location, it's likely that property prices will be slower to rise. So in turn, a smaller nest egg for you when you retire. But by purchasing new, expenses are generally less, and you currently have the ability to negative gear your expenses. So with new properties allowing you to depreciate, you may actually end up being cash flow positive after your tax reductions anyway. So some quick myth busting here. So I'm in the younger generation, so banks, real estates, etc. won't take me seriously. The reality is that the younger generation are key to making sure we have properties to rent for those that can't afford to buy into the future. So the industry is well aware that the younger generation are needed to ensure prosperity moving forward within Australia, because the government simply can't afford to house those in need. So somebody has to have these houses to house people that can't afford to buy. I don't work full time, so the banks won't lend to me. The bank's favourite kind of customer at the moment is the first home buyer. So there are a number of options that a bank can look at to help service a loan, such as parental guarantor, regular overtime, etc. So talk to a property club broker to look at options. Getting into debt is not financially savvy. There is good debt and there is bad debt. Your good debt is when you are in debt for an appreciating asset, meaning it's going up in value. Whereas your bad debt is for something that's going down in value or doing absolutely nothing for you, such as a car loan or credit card. So getting into good debt is financially savvy because it's doing something for you. And my favourite myth of all, the property club services, which are free of charge, are too good to be true. So we've been members of the club and purchasing for 9 years, and we're still waiting for the catch 4 properties later. But it's important that you understand that the club services are paid by commission from the seller rather than you as the purchaser, because the club looks after the interest of you as the buyer rather than the seller. So tonight we've talked about just a few myths that circulate with know-it-alls and the media. Unfortunately, in those cases, you're only going to get a very small snippet of info. So absolutely talk to your mentor to help understand the current climate. Remember that you're in control of your actions, not the people telling you what they think is right. Meaning those that are giving you their opinion aren't going to have to look after you when you're old and retired and need to fund your retirement. Only you have control of that. So that brings us to the conclusion of tonight's webinar, but I do want to talk to you about spreading the word. So we talked a little bit about how super's not going to cut it, and hopefully you do understand the importance of taking action to secure your financial freedom into the future. And we want you to spread the word. So in order to help facilitate that, the club does have a refer a friend campaign, whereby if you recommend a family member or a friend to the club and they make a purchase with the club, you will get $2,000. That's how important we see spreading the word to the younger generation in order to take action and take control of their financial future. Now, for those of you that have come along tonight that are not members, if you'd like more information or you would like to join up as a member, please email us at yic@propertyclub.com.au and we'll be able to get in touch and set you up as a member. Thanks so much for coming along tonight. Some really important points for you to take away, and any questions, please email us at yic@propertyclub.com.au. Thanks, guys.